Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and today I'm reviewing classified information from IncrediQuest Games. Classified Information is a two-player game, and this, by the way, is a prototype. Please keep that in mind, all rules, components, and all that stuff, subject to change. But this is over on Kickstarter. I'll have a link to that down below. But this is a two-player game. It's a two-player game of deduction in which players are going to start with their own little briefcase. You're going to have a briefcase over here. In this case, my briefcase is 5, and the numbers to potentially break into it are 4, 5, or 6. That's the idea over here. That's all that matters in this card. The 5 and the 4, 5, or 6 are what matters for right now. Some things are going to check that 5, and other things are going to check the 4, 5, or 6. We put that down, we have our briefcase in play. The other player has their own briefcase as well. That's going to go over there, but I don't know what that is. I have no clue. It could be anything. We're going to take 2 of these cards, put them off to the side. They are not in play at all. Who knows what they could be? It's anyone's game. We're going to draw 2 cards ourselves, and then we're going to go ahead and play the game. Well, they're also going to draw 2 cards, I guess. Let's go ahead and take 2 cards for myself and go ahead and play. Now in the game, what you're going to be doing is on your turn, you're going to be drawing a card and playing a card, drawing a card and playing a card until you're down to a single card left in your hand and all the cards are gone. The goal of the game is that your single card, their digit on that card, this digit over here, should match one of the digits on their remaining card. And if it does match, you have successfully broken into their briefcase and you've won the game. There are some caveats, there's some tiebreakers, there's some rules, there's a whole bunch of things to get into. But the general idea is you're trying to figure out what numbers are on their briefcase and ensure that you have a card left in your hand that matches one of the 3 numbers on your briefcase. That's the goal. Here's where things get a bit more complicated. Because one of the things you can do during the course of the game is you can play guards. Guards are going to be one of the 3 guilds in the game. There's going to be, and I don't remember the names of them offhand, they're probably on this little pamphlet over here. There's going to be guilds over here. There's somewhere. We have the guards, assassins, and sentinels. You see, guards effectively are going to protect your briefcase. Assassins are going to kill guards, and sentinels are either one at the same time. So you can pick or choose. Is it a guard? Is it an assassin? How do you want to play it? Now, the point of a guard is when you sit there, for example, over here, my briefcase, if you recall, over here, had a 4, 5, or 6. Those are the numbers. Those are the numbers I'm trying to protect. So maybe for my first turn, I'll go ahead and draw a card, and I'll go ahead and play the 6 over here, but I'll play it as a guard. So it's going to go on one of the 3 sides of my briefcase, and it's effectively protecting my briefcase. That 6 over here means that if my opponent has a 6 left in their hand, then they will not be able to break into it because I'm already using a 6 defensively. Now, it's worth noting here, these are 18 cards deck, and there's 9 numbers, which means there's 2 of each card, which means there only are 2 6s in the entire deck. So if I have both 6s in my hand, playing a 6 as a guard is not necessarily helping me. And you do want to figure those little nuances of the game out. But I go ahead, I play a card down, in this case I play it as a guard over there, and now if my opponent does have a 6 left, it means I'm only actually victim to 2 numbers. Over here on my briefcase, I'm victim to the 4 and the 5, but not actually the 6. That's why, though, there are assassins in play. Because if I have a 6 in my hand and I'm concerned that you have a 6 as a guard, I can go ahead and try to use an assassin to go ahead and kill one of your guards. Although, how you kill a guard basically is 2 ways. Either a guard's face up or it's face down. If it's face up, then you know what you're doing already. Let's say it's face down. I go ahead and play this as an assassin to kill this guard. I flip this guard over, and if any one of the numbers do, which the 5 and the 6 both do, then I successfully kill your guard. If they don't, then I don't successfully kill your guard, and you reveal a card in your hand, but it's not quite as satisfying as killing a guard. That's going to be the options on the table as far as the guilds go. So when you have a card, one of the things you can do is you can play a card for its guild ability, which again is either a guard to protect, an assassin to kill a guard, or a sentinel, which could be either one. But that's not the only thing you can do on your turn, because you could also go ahead and play a card for its actual ability. Now, the cards have a bunch of abilities on them, and we'll get to the other sets shortly over here. But the abilities in the card, for example, over here, the scavenge card is choose a card from the top 3 cards of the discard pile and place it in your hand, then discard another card in your hand. That can be very useful when you think you've figured out what your opponent has, but you probably need one of the cards that's no longer available. That's going to be one of the tactics available for you in the game. But all the cards have different abilities. Some of them are going to give you information. For example, you can go ahead and name a number, and your opponent has to go ahead and tell you if the number of their suitcase is within 2 of that number. That's going to give you a lot of information. It's going to allow you to go ahead and take your little number wheel card and use your little marker to mark off what is no longer in play, to establish and figure out what the options on the table are. There are a bunch of those cards and abilities that will slowly allow you to piece together information. That's, of course, in addition to the fact that you are seeing cards as you go. Bit by bit, you're going to see, hey, by the way, this 4, 5, 6 over here, there's only 2 of each sequence. There's 2 4, 5, 6s in the game, which means one of the 4, 5, 6 sequences is gone. If I see this over here as a 5, 6, 7, that means like the chances of those numbers being in play are a little bit lower. It's not perfect information, not yet, but it is getting closer to perfect information. So you're slowly trying to piece together what the opponent has through a combination of seeing the cards in play, utilizing their abilities, establishing what guards they have. If they go ahead and play a guard, were they bluffing you? If you kill that guard, you see it, you know it's up. He played a 6. Was that because it's protecting him, or was that a bluff, knowing I'd probably try to kill? It's early game after all. You have to play those little mind games with your opponent to try to figure out what's actually going on at the table. Past that, the last thing you have, the last option you have in the game is to simply discard a card with no reason, no action. You discard it down to the face down 2 cards that were set aside at the beginning of the game, and those cards are out of play. The purpose of doing that is to conceal information. You don't actually get an ability of it. You don't get a guild ability. You don't get a card ability, but you do get to hide information from your opponent that they otherwise they won't know now. Generally, when you play a card for its ability, they're going to find out what you played sooner or later. Versus when you discard it, it's gone. It's out of the game. That could be key information that helps you win the game or obfuscate what's going on your end. That is basically how you play classified information. On your turn, you draw a card, you play a card either removing it from the game, or for its guild ability, or for its actual card ability, and your entire goal is to end up with a card in your hand that matches your opponent's briefcase that is also not protected by a guard, while ensuring that your opponent is not able to do the same to you. In case of a tie, you look at who has more guards, and past that, you go ahead and share the victory. That is classified information, which brings us to a review, and let's just cover these over here. These are 2 more sets over here. 2 more sets of cards with the same core rules, but different card abilities that all interplay. So if you're getting bored of the core set over here, you do have more options as far as the same game system, just with more abilities for you. As far as a review, starting off with ease of play, I mean, this is the rulebook here. This pack of further things, that's the rulebook. So ease of play is 5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes of figuring out what's going on over here. It does take a few more minutes to piece together how the system operates. So it's learning the game and then understanding the game, but maybe 10 minutes of like total processing and teach to get into this. This is a micro game. It teaches very quickly, it learns very quickly, it plays very quickly, it has 18 cards. It's a very easy game to pick up and play, and the games tend to last around 10 to 20 minutes on average for a game. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see that's not liking, starting off with what I like, which is the game has more depth than a singular play will reveal. Because you can understand the rules of the game, but understanding the nuances of the game, understanding the card breakdown is a big deal of how the game operates. This would be a game where I have played against people who are sitting there and they're using like, double 6s as guards to protect their card, and you're like, if you've used both 6s, we can't always use double 6s. They're using double 6s for 2 reasons. So you have one as a guard, and you discard one for its ability. And you're like, you had both 6s. You don't need to do that. It's not going to help you in the game. You need to figure out those kind of nuances of the game system of how it operates as you play. And so you're trying to figure out the card distribution, what cards have been out of play, what abilities are useful, what abilities are going to give you perfect information versus what are going to narrow you down a little bit more in the game. How can you obfuscate things? The core rules are not that hard to pick up and play, but it does take more than one play to kind of reveal the best way to play this if you are trying to be on top of your game, if you are trying to outplay your opponent. And the hiding, the guilds, the abilities, they all give you a good set of options in the game, so you're never stuck with just one thing to do. You always have a variety of options on the table in front of you. Are you playing more offensively? Are you playing more defensively? How are you obfuscating information? Those are all tools at your disposal in the game. And so the game gives you a very clean, very clear system of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to stop your opponent from doing. And then they give you various options as far as how to get there in a very light on the rules game, but a bit more heavier on the amount of decision space that the game gives you. Not heavy, not by a long shot, but a bit heavier than this set of rules over here. Very, very, very easy to dive into, and there are enough options on the table. Speaking of options, the variety of the 3 sets is a big thing as well. If you are getting a little bored of the abilities over here, having more card abilities in different sets that are all meant to work together and complement each other is a good thing as far as giving you more replayability baked into, well, 36 more cards. Not a whole lot more, but 36 more cards in the game, and so you have all that at play as well. And then there are abilities to block each other. You're trying to play both offensively and defensively, and there are multiple tools to be able to act and react and try to get in each other's way, and there's options to adapt to the game state, there's options to go ahead and dig into the discard pile, to be able to counter your opponent, to react to an attempted assassination. All of these things are at play, and choosing which cards you're holding on to at any given time, because you know that card is going to be useful later, that's going to be a big part of the decision space of how you play through classified information. As far as what I don't like in the game, not really a lot to not like. This is a smaller form factor game, which means there's less to like and there's less to not like at the same time. But first of all, if you don't have the cards, you just don't have the cards, which can happen. It's very easy in the game for you to burn through a bunch of cards trying to figure out what your opponent has, because you need that process. At the beginning of the game, it's anything. At the beginning of the game, the only piece of information you have is your suitcase and the 2 cards in your hand, which is a little bit of information, but it's not nearly enough, which means you need to burn through cards to be able to get to the point where you can be like, I'm pretty sure you got like a 5 and a 6. It might be 4, 5, 6. It might be 5, 6, 7. But you have one of those systems over there. The problem is, by the time you as a player figure that out, it is entirely possible you've burnt through the 5s and the 6s that you've gotten, figuring it out, and they have 5s and 6s on their ends to defend it, and so you just can't do much with it. This is a game where it's short enough, it's fast enough, but there is enough room for that, and by enough room I mean it's happened, where you can figure things out, you can know stuff, and then sometimes you just don't have the tools at your disposal because you just didn't draw into it. Congratulations, you figured out the briefcase, and you can't do jack with that information, and that can be frustrating in the experience. Also, there's only so much deductive gameplay the game allows for. This is a small form factor game. This is not a absolute perfect deduction game system. There's a few cards and abilities that will give you tools and be able to ask information and, piece together things. And so there's a limit to how far this game can go. It is a deductive game, for sure. It's a deductive two-player head-to-head game with a degree of crossing off, process of elimination, all those things. But there's only so much actual deduction going on. There's more so there's a degree of asking questions, just ruling things out. If I say, do you have a 6? And you don't, that's one less thing. Now, obviously, there's not a card that says, do you have a 6? Not like that. But there are cards that ultimately are having you ask questions of your opponent and then just crossing things out directly. There's more process of elimination in this game than there is actual deduction. So if you're looking for a deduction game, I don't think this is going to have... I think this is like 80% process of elimination and 20% deduction, as opposed to other game systems that are deductive that give you a lot more deductive within that system. As far as things I can see others not liking, if you don't get how the game operates, it's just going to be frustrating. Like I mentioned already, I've played this game with a few players, and some people are able to pick up and, go back and forth, and you're head-to-head, and you're trying to block and obfuscate and figure out things on your own. And other times, you're sitting there playing a game, and people, like I said already, are playing 2 6s, one is a guard, and one is for the ability, and you're like, you had both 6s, you didn't need to do that. And that kind of thing can be very prevalent throughout the game if you don't fully understand how things are operating, which is true for any game, obviously. But I'd say that I've seen it more happen with this game, where if you don't really pick up how things interplay, it's not going to be a fun time. I don't know if it's a deduction thing in general, but this could be a game that bounces off of you easily if it's not your type of game. I'll say that there's a lot of luck, not a lot of luck, there's some luck in terms of the blind assassinations, but also the, the final cards and the guilds in play and the guards in play. So you have the guards in play, you have the final card, you have the blind assassinations, all of them have a degree of strategy, but also a degree of, okay, great, I figured out you have a 4, 5, 6, and I kept a 4, and the card you played as a guard is a 4, and I listen, if I had played a 6 or a 7 or whatever, a 5 or 6, I would have been fine, but I happened to have a 4, and that was the guard you played. There's definitely going to be those elements of luck. There's still good, skilled gameplay in terms of reducing the elements of luck, in terms of being able to minimize the amount of unknown information, but even at that point, there still can be unknown information at play that just results in someone getting lucky when someone else does not. As far as final thoughts on classified information, I enjoyed the game. It's a 3.5 out of 5 for me. It's a fun game, it's an enjoyable system. I enjoy the speed, the ease, how quick it is to teach, to play, how portable it is, the variety of the sets. All things are good in the game. I think it's very solid at what it's doing for a micro game, while still being a micro game and still having the limitations that many micro games have. Some micro games do manage to break past that for me and really be exceptional experiences. I find most micro games have a more limited set of how far or how diverse the set can actually be, and therefore how enjoyable it can be as well. And I find that's where I am with classified information. I enjoy this. It's a fast, easy, 2-player puzzle, but it's one that has a cap on just how great it can be, or how great it is, I should say. So for me, it's a good game, not necessarily a great game. It's a 3.5 out of 5. As far as other recommendations, first of all, a game that is obviously very reminiscent to this, very similar, but with much more than 2 players. This game does feed off the core system and feel of Love Letter. If you've played Love Letter, this game very much has that feel to it. It is different, it's its own beast very much, but it has elements of similarity to the way that system plays. And if you're looking for a two-player, not so much deduction game, but a 2-player asymmetric game of some degree of deduction, some degree of just good gameplay as you try to figure things out and outwit and outmaneuver your opponent. Unrest from Pandasaurus Games is a recent game that I've had a chance of playing that I really enjoy the way that one operates, as far as being able to try to get in your opponent's head, and as far as how you have to block them in an asymmetric small box experience. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.